We have another great story for you. Think of it. Today we're talking about, isn't truth really stranger than fiction? Jewels and castles and royal balls that every woman dreams of, and marrying a millionaire who can make her every wish come true. Just stay with us. Wait till you hear the other stories. First, some questions. Yes?
Well, thank you very much. This one is for Sherry, and anticipating the next couple's dilemma. Didn't you two, as, you know, with your married couples, didn't you ever, like, go out shopping or to the movies or anything? Or was it always a sexual, you know, orgy or anything like that?
Oh, yes. Definitely. Did a lot of shopping. In Belgium, food is extremely important, so I learned to actually cook like a real good Belgian cook.
I want to know from Sherry, why did you go through so many episodes before you decided it was time for you to leave, and why did you go to the sister's house when you did leave?
All right. I went through so much because even though when you tell a story very fast, it sounds like everything happens at one point, but things happen slowly. And I was piecing it together. I loved him very much, and I wanted to get help for him. I wanted to see exactly how I could make it work. I had put 3 years of my life into it, and I felt I had to make it work. And why? I went to the sister's house, although I should say, certain times I did try to leave, and then suddenly he became back into his really good self again, and then I imagined the severity of what happened. Why I went to his sister's house was because his sister, of all the people, was the most lovely and warm person of anyone I met, even though she was totally amoral.
Please meet Sharon. Sharon was recently divorced when her dear sister fixed her up on a double blind date with a millionaire, and after a whirlwind romance, they tied the knot. Her fantasy life came to a bit of a halt when she discovered that her husband was not who she thought he was. Sharon, start with the story. You didn't want to meet anybody. The divorce was over, and your sister insisted. And when you went out on this date, what did you see? What was he like?
When he came to my doorstep, I opened up the door, and I went, I didn't even want to go out on this date. Why would I go off with this gentleman?
Why? What was wrong with him?
He wasn't what I would physically be attracted to.
What did he look like?
He just wasn't the type. He was about my height, a smaller man, red-headed. I've never dated anyone but mostly dark-haired men in my life, and he was not my physical ideal. But the minute he opened up his mouth, his personality was like sunshine. He could walk into a room and the whole room would brighten up. He was magnetic and just very intellectually stimulating. He had a fantastic intellect. The minute we started talking, we never ceased talking. We went to the dinner club in Savannah, a private dinner club. We were supposed to be meeting some other people there, and they didn't show up, so we had a chance to kind of get to know each other. I asked him about his background. He told me that he was an only child of parents that were only children, and they had passed away. He had never had any children of his own. He was married up in New York and was dating, or he had married this woman. She supposedly had died in 1987. He sold his jewelry business in New York because he was so grief-stricken, left everything behind, and relocated to Savannah to start his life over.
And that's when he met you?
That's when well, a few months after he came to Savannah, he stayed secluded, and then he decided to come out in society. And that's when he met me. He asked me and the other members of the dinner party that evening to go out on the boat the following Thursday. We all agreed, of course. Like I said, he was just a wonderful host. And so we all went to his house. When I walked in the door, I was astounded. His art collection, his statues, his book collection, his CDs, the music he loved, the sheet music that he played on his piano was identical to mine. I just could not imagine there was someone out there that had the exact same taste. It was so much fun. And
same taste in books, same taste in music,
same
taste in art,
everything. And as I said, just intellectually stimulating. After we went out on the boat, had a fantastic time. We sat for hours and talked. We were basically inseparable after that. Had a wonderful time. He was constantly showering me with roses. Very soon after that, he started proposing. And I was like, no way. I do not want to even really get this involved with anyone. I'm recently divorced. I'm very happy in my life. I've got my 2 sons from my previous marriage. I'm happy. I don't need an enhancement except for just our friendship. Let's leave it at this. He was very persistent. Every time I turned around, he was showering me. His trademark was 5 dozen roses and the best champagne. I went to his house one day. He had a treasure hunt for me. There was a card in the 5 dozen roses which led me to a different hiding place, where I found another card which led me to a different hiding place which led me to another card. I eventually uncovered the treasure, which was a diamond and emerald bracelet and earrings. Very, very nice. Just everything I wanted, he dumped in my lap. So finally I said, okay, this is getting out of hand. If you want me to marry you, since we know each other's minds so well, you've got to figure out how to propose to me exactly. Once you have that figured out, I'll say yes. A couple of weeks after that, he took me out on his boat, had the trademark 5 dozen red roses again, the best champagne. He had on his swim trunks. He slipped on his tux jacket over his swim trunks, and wonderful sense of humor, as a matter of fact, and got down on his knees and proposed to me in the most flowery, romantic way anyone could possibly be asked, be proposed to. And then he opened up the ring case, and it was a 6-carat diamond. He slipped it on my finger, and I said, okay, you figured it out. At that point in time, he pushed me overboard. And so I guess that was just his way of saying, you've given me a hard enough time, I'm going to get you back. So
where were you married?
We were married on a riverboat in Savannah. A fantastic riverboat ceremony. It was a lot of fun. We had a band, a caterer, champagne everywhere. It was a lot of fun. Immediately after that, we went to Paris for a honeymoon.
And what went wrong? Can you tell us?
In Paris, he started exhibiting a little bit of odd behavior. He was talking in his sleep, saying some very strange things. They're after me, they're after me. I figured he was just having nightmares, the excitement of the trip, the honeymoon, everything, so I discounted that. When we got home the following week, he had gone into town for some business, and I found a video. I plugged it in. It was a video of the wife that supposedly had died in 1987. She was alive and well in 1990, dancing in a club, and there were some things that, you know, there were some cars in there that were 1990 models. I got frightened, and I took the children and left and took the video. I went home to my parents, and I plugged it in. I said, somebody please explain this to me. He's lied to me for some reason. There's something wrong here. And they said, Sharon, he may have had a reason for this. Go home. He's been wonderful to you and the children. He's always been wonderful. He hasn't exhibited any dangerous behavior. Go home and question him. So I did. Whenever I went home and I questioned him, after we put the children to bed, we were sitting in the jacuzzi just talking, and he said, Sharon, I am a protected witness. He said, I am a witness under the Federal Protection Program. The money that he had supposedly was a stipend from the government to allow him to start over. The people he testified against were drug people from Colombia, South America. I drilled him on the story. I drilled him constantly for a couple of weeks. His story, the details never varied. I went to the library. I checked out books on the Federal Witness Protection Program. The books all stated all of his details in perfect order, everything. He had his story down perfectly.
Except I wonder if the government gives you enough money for 6-carat diamonds. Something was wrong, and we'll find out what when we return.
To the Sally Jesse Raphael Show. Write Sally Jesse Raphael, Post Office Box 1400, Radio City Station, New York, New York, 10101.
Today we're answering the question, so what happens to you if you do marry the man of your dreams? The man who embodies everything you'd ever thought about as a child. Wealth, handsome, charming, the perfect man. For all of our guests today, the perfect lives turned into horror stories. Was he a member of the Federal Witness Protection Program? He had you convinced he was?
Actually, what happened, October the 23rd, 3 months after we were married, I was at home alone in the morning. He was taking my children in to the woman that kept them during the daytime. All of a sudden, I saw this cavalcade of cars pouring into my driveway. They jumped out of the car, started surrounding my house. They were in their FBI uniforms, bulletproof vests, shotguns drawn, two-way radios, everything, started banging on my door. I started laughing. I thought it was a Halloween trick he was playing on me. He was always doing things like that, but they started pounding on the door. My second thought after that instant was, oh my God, these are the people that he testified against, and they're in these uniforms to gain access to my home. But they were so insistent, pounding on the door, till finally I went to go get it. They swooped in, threw me up against the wall, and held a gun up against my head and started swarming my house. After a few minutes, someone came in and they said, Sharon, what are you doing here? And it was an FBI agent that I knew. I had worked with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I said, what are you doing here? This is my home. He said, Sharon, we've got to talk to you. So they took me back to the garden room, opened up a file, and my husband's face was in the file. He had actually been an embezzler, had faked his own death in New Orleans, had landed in Savannah under a different identity, a completely different life.
And he embezzled $2 million.
He embezzled several million. They only indicted him for a couple because they said the paperwork was getting too high.
When he came home, did they arrest him?
I never saw him again. He did pull back up in the driveway. Thank God he had dropped my children off. And they picked him up on the front doorstep. I didn't see him. They kept me in the back.
You have not seen him?
I went to the holding cell. I had to force myself to do that, to say, who are you? Who are you? He couldn't offer me any explanation. He couldn't. We just...
That was it?
That was it.
Please meet Dr. Polly Young-Eisendrath. She is a psychologist who specializes in relationships. Doctor, you've been listening to these stories, and they're incredible. How were these three intelligent women able to be fooled by these men?
Well, a lot of them have mentioned dreams. People keep saying it was like a dream. And actually, when we fall in love, we go into something that's like a dream. We have a fantasy about the person of the opposite sex. And that dream essentially carries us through the time of the romance or the courtship, when we fill in what, might be wrong, what our friends would look at and say, hey, what are you getting into here? We're filling it in with a dream.
Does that mean that every woman who marries a man is bound to be disappointed?
Yes. In fact, I would say it's not only the women. It goes both ways.
I've always contended that. We're going to find out the warning signs, answer some questions, and also, I think the doctor has 3 types of men. So we'll be right back. I think you're going to find this absolutely fascinating. At least I did. You can say, I heard on Sally's program today, all women are disappointed. Okay. We have 3 kinds of fantasies. I'm going to name them. First is the hero.
Right.
We want to marry a hero. What does that mean, the hero?
Actually, I think that Sharon illustrated the hero pretty well when she said that he was something like her soulmate. The hero is a man that a woman would be. He's the kind of guy who's sensitive, who doesn't watch a lot of television, who cleans up after himself, who has the same interests, the same tastes, and we say, when we look out there for the hero, he's going to be my soulmate, he will be the ideal companion.
Now, our father figure, a lot of women look for a father figure.
Right, and maybe Jenny was looking for a father figure, I'm not sure. But Jenny, if you were looking for someone who is stable, secure, who's going to bring you some kind of security and stability, make a happy home, and maybe a good family life. And again, the idea is that this is what the man is going to bring to me. You were working hard also in what you were doing, but you may have thought he was mentoring you into it, he was bringing you into this world. So the father figure is the one who brings us the sense of security that we're looking for.
And the last is obvious. It's the creative, erotic, romantic genius, which is probably what Sherry did.
Exactly. And he's the one that a lot of people are looking for.
She said that the Baron had a personality like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I was wondering if there was any drug or alcohol abuse in that relationship.
Well, in these circles, there's so much drinking. Life is always lived under a rosy haze, so much champagne. And so, yes, alcohol, that's part of this pleasure-seeking life, but no drugs.
No drugs.
I just want to give all these women a lot of credit because they've been through a lot. Have they gotten any kind of therapy?
You gotten help for yourselves?
Well, I have.
Right.
I received help at least for about 18 months afterwards.
Now, let's
And
hear
my
the
children.
warning signs. You'll notice I'm hurrying
I
everyone
just
along.
want to say what
Yes.
my help was writing a book, was the greatest catharsis. And once you write a book, it becomes a story that's almost apart from you. And you can look at it as a story and not your life. And that's the only way to recuperate.
The New York Times gave her book rave reviews, by the way. But warning signs, if you can do it in a minute.
Right. Well, I think, first of all, if the relationship has a feeling of a dominant submission, even in the romance time when you have to take on his life, not living your own life, that's the really first warning sign that you better be careful, because he's not talking about you as a partner, he's talking about you as the subject of his domination. That's one thing. Another thing is that you have to recognize that falling in love is not being in love. The romance does not lead directly into an intimate relationship. Coming between the two is a disillusionment. In a normal situation, disillusionment should feel like a disappointment in your partner, like, he's not exactly what I thought he would be, but it should not feel like a break in trust. These women all experienced a break in trust, and that really set the stage for something that would lead to a separation and not a relationship. So if you feel that during this time of disillusionment, you're faced with lies or a basic break in trust, that's a very different kind of thing. As well, I think we need to think of ourselves as our own white knights, in the sense of returning to a sense of ourselves as providing what it is we're looking for. And I think each one of these women has found herself, to some extent, through this disillusionment and the waking up.
Can you give me in one sentence why we women dream like that? Men don't do it. Why do we fantasize it? In one sentence, what is it with us?
Okay, I don't know if it's just us. I would say the men do it too. I think all of us, we're a romance-crazed culture, and we're looking for the dream out there. We rarely think that we can bring it to ourselves. We're looking for another person, the opposite sex,
to give it
somehow
to us.
To bring it to us.
Take a break.